Hello, I'm Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub. Here we are, the 21st of December, and it's a time of the Winter Solstice in the Northern Hemisphere and the Summer Solstice in the Southern Hemisphere. In this episode, John Paul Fischbach shares the true meaning of these pivotal times and how we can honor them to enhance our lives. Hello, John Paul. I can't believe that we're already in December and we're at the Winter Solstice. What does that really mean?
So the winter solstice is the part where the sun pauses. So if you can imagine that in ancient times, you watched the sun every day, it rose and it was having a movement from the southern part of your sky to the northern part of your sky to the southern part. So what you're seeing now is it is in the farthest southern point of the sky. So it's like a big pendulum, and it swings and it kind of pauses and then it starts its way back. So, at one end, you're at the summer solstice. At the other end, you're at the winter solstice. So it's the longest night of the year for you. The hard part is it's a little bit of a mind scramble because I'm in the Southern Hemisphere and it's our summer solstice. So bear with me as I kind of have these pauses where I go, did I say that correctly for the Northern Hemisphere? So I'm pretending that I'm in the Northern Hemisphere and we're going to do this.
So does it help if I bring up an image for the Northern Hemisphere?
Let's do that. Perfect.
Okay, so then I think it's easier for people to see, what you mean. There we go. So this is
perfect.
This is for the Northern Hemisphere.
So I am unfortunately dressed for the Southern Hemisphere because if you'll see on that diagram, it says summer and that's red in the south. So that's us in the Southern Hemisphere. If I had dressed for the Northern Hemisphere, I would have had on my white shirt. So okay. You can see that the colors represent the directions. So for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, there we are. You can see where December winter solstice is that axis line. So in the medicine wheel, there are two important axes. One goes winter solstice, and then if you look all the way across that line, you see it hits June, which is the summer solstice for you. So the other important axis is the equinoxes. So if it made sense that the solstices are the sun going to their extreme parts of rising. So from the very farthest in the south, you'll ever see it, to the very farthest in the north that you'll ever see it. Then when it comes to the midpoint, that's your equinox. So the equinoxes are equal. So equinox is an easy word to remember because equinox is equal. So that's equal day and equal night. And that's halfway across your cycle of the year. So when all the stuff that I do with sacred sites and the whole documentary thing, one of the two places that you find temples, most of them honor the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Whether you're in the Northern Hemisphere or the Southern Hemisphere, those are the two times of year that temples tend to observe the rising and recording the rising of the sun or the setting of the sun.
So let's look at the Southern Hemisphere just so that people can see the difference. I'm just seeing if I can find, there we go. There's the Southern Hemisphere. So it's all the other way around.
Right. So you see that for us, the winter solstice happens in June and the summer solstice happens in December. Our autumn equinox is in March, completely opposite for you. And our spring equinox is in September, whereas yours is in March. So it's just flipped the other way, depending on where you are. So again, for temples that you find in the Southern Hemisphere, they're going to point toward the rising of the sun at the winter solstice as well. Because if you think about it, if you're a Neolithic people and you're connected to the cycles of the seasons and the cycles of the year, the most important thing you need to know is winter's almost over. We've gone through the worst. The days are going to start to get longer. Things are going to get warmer. Away we go. So that's an important moment for everyone to know. When is this going to happen? How much, are we, if you put away your winter storage of food, you want to know that, okay, we've now hit the solstice. We're good to go. Everything is going to get better. And it's beautiful to think that those people knew that there was this cycle that was always going to happen. Whether it was a stormy day or a warm day, you knew that you were at this point in the year, and you knew that this was a circle, and you were traveling this circle. So I often say to people, the most important thing you can do in terms of getting connected to the earth or getting connected to nature is to spend a year honoring these cycles, honoring these days, because it helps you recalibrate. You know, we are thrown from pillar to post, depending on what the media tells us. And it's really nice to have an anchor. And I think the solstices and the equinox are a beautiful anchor that you have, that no matter what's happening to you or what's happening in the world or who's controlling things or not controlling things, you've got these markers. So and again, you always wanted to know the spring equinox as well, because that was about planting.
Yes, the seeds.
Yep.
So what can people do today on the winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere? And what can people do? Are there different kind of things that you would do when, depending on whether you're in the Northern Hemisphere or in the Southern Hemisphere of the world?
Yes, there are. So, So if you think that in the Northern Hemisphere, we'll talk about your world first. If you think about being in the Northern Hemisphere and the longest night, the shortest day is what's happening right now. So the days are going to get a bit longer. And what the sun is trying to say is, I'm giving you more energy. I'm giving you more energy. Every day I'm giving you a little bit more energy, because you're going to start coming out of this introspective period. You're coming out of this. You're going to now be more active. So what you do on the winter solstice, the reason it's always the return of the light, and then we can discuss about how Christianity co-opted that, and never mind, but that's another conversation. But it's about the return of the light. So for winter solstice, I recommend that you get a big candle, a big fat candle, and you decorate that candle. You decorate that candle with all the things you want. You're going to be coming out of this cocoon. You're going to come out of your introspective time. You're going to every day get a little more sunlight, be a little more active, a little more active. So why? What is the action you want to take? So if you're coming into this time of activity, what is the action you want? So it's about a vision that says, this is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to do. So you make a long or short list about the actions that you want to have in your life, the actions you want to take. So you write down that beautiful list, you wrap it around that candle, you tie it with some beautiful ribbons, and then you light that candle, and the candle burns for 24 hours, please. Because you want the light of you, the light that you have kindled, you have ignited this candle, and you want that to be reflected by the grandmother moon and father sun. So you want to have it for 24 hours so that both the sun and the moon get to understand that this is your intention. This is the spark you want to create in the world. So I think it's a really sweet, beautiful thing to do for winter solstice.
So it's a big fat white candle, then write down all the things you want to bring into action, your vision, decorate the candle, tie it around, and keep it lit for all that 24 hours. Now, another thing that I often do, so tell me if this is completely wrong, is I often use a pen, and although it won't write that you can see, I almost carve into a candle. So I'm almost writing on the candle. So if I want to put blessings for a particular person, then I literally write in the candle, even though you can't see it, it's carved in their name, and let it burn down. I've always done that so I guess if you've got a big fat candle, you can actually write the actions and things in the candle. So, you know, it melts, and then that also takes away any worry about if you've wrapped paper around that it catching light or anything like that with your candle.
Right. That's why I say you get one of the fat ones. so it won't catch the paper. But yes, so the idea of the big candle. So some people have a big, fat, tall candle that's their winter solstice candle, and it just gets burned every year. So
Yeah.
every year there's a neat piece of paper around it. That's their solstice candle. Some people have a tradition where you get a smaller candle because what you want to do is to burn that all the way down before you hit the spring equinox. So between December 21st for you and March the 20th, somewhere around there, you want to have the whole candle burned down. But
Okay.
different traditions, but carving it into the candle is absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Okay, so that's good if you think you might nod off and you don't want the worry of burning candles and fire and flame. So what happens in the Southern Hemisphere? It's a different color candle, I'm assuming.
No, it's not a candle at all. It's
Oh,
water.
water.
So if you think about the fact that what's happening in the summer solstice is we're now, the world, the Father Sun is now saying, look, I'm going to give you a little bit less. You're going to get a little bit less sunlight every day now. So I want you to prepare for going inside. You're now coming within, you're going within. So it's what are the dreams? You know, you're preparing to have dreams. So you don't know, you're embracing the mystery. So in the summer solstice, it's embracing the mystery. You don't know what's going to happen. So you're surrendering. So what you do for the summer solstice is you try to wash yourself as clean as you can, and you have a good, long, beautiful bath, and you just surrender to the water, and you surrender to the emotions, and you say, I'm ready to go within. I'm ready to meet my higher self. I'm ready to have the mystery unfold. I'm ready to learn. It's not about you being active. It's about you surrendering. So instead of burning a candle or anything, it's about cleansing and taking in the water and trusting the water. So you create a bowl of water that you have, and you get the best water you possibly can. And you look in that bowl to see your reflection. So you look at your reflection in the surface of that water, and you look at yourself, and you spend time just looking within, looking deeply into your own eyes as reflected in that water. And then you drink that water. So you can either have that bowl of water, which has your reflection in it. So it's like, you know how you can charge water with words and things?
Yes.
Well, you're charging this beautiful bowl of water with you. It's now charged with you.
Okay.
So you've looked at this
you
reflection.
want to make sure that you're clean and coming with the best of intentions and open.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't want your ugly face in the water. You want your clean face. And then you drink that water, and you might sip that water until the bowl is empty. So you might, you know, cover it or put it in a jar or something, because that's you. And you're saying, I'm willing to surrender to go within and find the depth of me, but it's a mystery. You don't know what you're going to find. You're just surrendering to that.
I really,
cool, huh?
Yes. Yeah. Because obviously you'd think, well, I thought it was just the opposite, have a different color candle, but it takes into account what the seasons are actually for and what the solstices really are. So there's a time of action, and there's a time of being in flow and going within. So very, very different energy. And of course, with the candle and the flame, you've got the fire, which is, you know, building up. And then, as I said, going within the flow and taking something within rather than sending it out, and being open to the mystery, letting go. That's beautiful. Yeah. So again, for us in the Northern Hemisphere, something for us to remember in the summertime, a different ritual to do at the time of the summer solstice. Now, is it important to be, you know, they always say portals, and sort of the veil gets very thin around the time of the equinox.
Absolutely. So if you can pull up the northern chart again, I'll show you where that falls.
Okay, here it comes. That's the southern, so let's go back. There's the northern hemisphere.
There we go. So we've just come across, today is the winter solstice. So you see that line at December, the winter solstice line, perfect. So you're gonna come across, and what happens is you've got things that are called cross quarter days, which is halfway between. So that's around February 1st is Imbolc in the northern hemisphere. Then you come to the equinox, and then you've got halfway between the equinox And the summer solstice, you have Beltane, and then across, if you go straight across the wheel to October, November, you've got another time called Samhain. And at those 2 points, so May the 1st and November the 1st, are the times when the veil is the thinnest.
Interesting.
So that's kind of a fun, yeah. So it's not on the equinoxes, but it's between the equinox and the next coming solstice.
Okay.
That the veil is the thinnest. And that's when I do the work. That's when I do the soul release work, ceremony, communication with those that have passed over and ancestors is all incredibly easy during those two. But those are called cross-quarter days.
Yes, and of course, around the beginning of November, well, at the end of October, we have Halloween, and also beginning of November, and we talked about this in one of the recordings, in one of the sessions, the Mexican Day of the Dead. Yeah,
the All Souls Day. So funny that they chose those days. I wonder why.
Yes, so there is method in the madness.
Yep.
A previous time, and then of course, so what changes in terms of if we go to the Southern Hemisphere in terms of those?
Just the time of year that it happens. So you can see that the cross-quarter days. So see Beltane there between November and October at the bottom there in the springtime.
Yes.
Yep. So there's Beltane, and then on the other, completely opposite on the wheel between May and April, you've got Samhain. So instead of, you guys think of Halloween and All Souls Day on October 31st, but for us, it's May 1st.
What language is this Samhain and Beltane? What language is that? A Druid?
That's Celtic. So that's Irish Celtic. Okay. So it's the Irish wheel of the year it's just so beautiful. And the ceremonies that the Celtic shaman have had for thousands of years are just stunningly beautiful. So one of the things that I do when I teach apprentices is I take the apprentices for a year, and they have to walk this wheel of the year with me. So we're, in the Southern Hemisphere. So whenever we start the year, we do those feast days. So we borrow the Celtic words because those cycles of what's happening at that time of year is about nature and what nature is going through. So if it's harvest time, if it's planting time, those kinds of rituals are always the same, whether you're in the Northern or Southern Hemisphere. But it's the beautiful Celtic shaman that created those are their terms, their words.
Okay, beautiful.
Because in the Aboriginal cultures, they didn't have the same kind of wheel. They talk about the cycle, but depending on where you are on this incredible continent, it might be divided into 6 seasons. It might be divided into 8 seasons. And if you're up in the northern part of Australia, you've got the wet and the dry. So again, in Aboriginal culture, there was a cycle, but it isn't as clearly divided. They're by what's flowering. They're divided by who's laying eggs at what time of year, and particularly what stars are in the sky that author these changes of the seasons. That when that constellation rises, you know that the storms are coming and it's good fishing, or the turtles are going to be laying their eggs, so their seasons are different. But again, it's understanding that there's a cycle of time that will always happen. You can count on it. It doesn't depend on who's the president or whether there's a virus or not. This will always happen. And I just think in this crazy world we live in, to anchor to something that's always going to happen, that you can rely on this. You can absolutely rely on this. Even with global warming, you can rely on this.
Yes. Now, I noticed that when you talked about what we can do, you've talked about, almost like a personal ceremony at these particular times, whether it's the lighting of the candle and setting your actions and your vision, or looking into the water and drinking the water and going within. So it sounds like it's a very personal time as well, rather than, I would imagine, in the autumn and in the spring, it's more of a group celebration.
Yes. Typically, there were private ceremonies it's a personal commitment that you make at the solstices, but the equinoxes are a very public celebration because you're at that place. And always the equinoxes are the celebration of the balance of the masculine and the feminine. So again, they're community gatherings. And one of the things that I do in my gatherings is that if we're passing from the feminines, we're coming out of the winter. So when you hit March, the winter's over. So in that ceremony, we thank the women for keeping us connected to our intuition and for helping us to go within and allow our emotions to flow. And we say to the women, we thank you so much for keeping that strong for us, but we're good now. We'll take it from here. And so the women say, well, if you're taking over, we charge you with, and they give a charge to the men and say, if now we're going into the masculine half of the year, in the spring and the summer, here's the deal. We want you guys to get this done because we've had the dream. We, the women, have dreamt of what's required. So you guys get out there and do this. So the women give the men a charge and the men give thanks to the women. And then when we come around to the autumn equinox, it's reversed. We thank the men for all of their work and their hard work and their industry. And we say, okay. And then we turn to the women and we say, we're going inside now. So come on, women, we need you. So we give a charge to the women.
So it really is a beautiful cycle, whether it's the solstice or the equinox. It really is a beautiful circle and cycle of respect, honoring yourself, honoring others, and making sure, well, again, the balance of vision and action and also introspection, allowing and flowing.
Yep.
Beautiful balance. Yep. Love it.
Yep.
So off to buy a big fat white candle. And if you're if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, then buying the best or getting hold of the best water that you can to look at your reflection in that water and then drink it. How beautiful.
Yep. So the picture behind me that I chose for this one is the Labyrinth.
Yes.
So I often think that at both the solstices, it's a golden opportunity to walk the labyrinth. Because you're trying to, if you're coming out now, you're going through, and as this labyrinth design is the one that has the 7 turns. So each turn can represent a chakra. So you come and you say, if I'm coming out of the winter coming, you're coming out again, you go through each one and you say, what have I learned? Am I ready? Am I prepared? So you're preparing all of your chakras as you make each of those turns. Thank you for the teaching that I learned in the dream and in the quiet and in the introspection. And then when you come out, you give a charge to that. And you say, for the root chakra, this is what I want to happen. For the heart chakra, right? So you're building your plan of action as you come out of the labyrinth. So you can imagine for the summer solstice, it's just the reverse. But walking the labyrinth is a beautiful solstice tradition. And that the Catholic churches that had a different labyrinth design, those were used for candle mass, was what it was called, right?
Yes.
And it's the same. So walking the labyrinth at Shaka was when you did it, was that personal time, and everyone was allowed their personal time at the summer solstice and winter solstice to walk this pathway.
So with the labyrinth, you're literally walking through the chakras all the way up. And then as you come out of the labyrinth, you're coming all the way down. So the balance of below and above and below.
Yep.
Realigning them. Yes.
Yep.
It makes such a difference when you understand that it's not just a maze and you're not just walking and reflecting. What you're actually having an intention in mind makes it all the more meaningful.
Yeah. It's, because this wasn't something, no one has a labyrinth in their front yard to do it every day. Some people do. But it was a special thing that you were prepared to go do this. So, you did, it was work. There's so many people that walk the labyrinth and are like, oh, la la la. I'm like, no, there's work to be done if you're doing this.
Yes.
Focus, be conscious as you do this.
Yes, it's not a skip through process. It's really take your time. And also, what did you learn at each stage and each step? Excellent.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And then depending on the tradition, some people, when they get to the middle, they leave a gift and take a gift. So in beautiful places where I have helped build labyrinths for different people that have retreats or whatever, the center is full of all kinds of beautiful crystals or messages or all kinds of gifts. And so you go in and you leave a gift and you take a gift. And it just is this beautiful cycle of there's always going to be enough for everyone, because everyone coming in leaves a gift and everyone leaving takes a gift.
Yeah, and a great reminder on giving and receiving, because there's usually a lovely imbalance for many people on that. You find givers, and takers, but to have, the balance again of giving and receiving, particularly at this time as we race towards the end of the year and on this beautiful solstice.
There you go.
Thank you so much for giving us practical guidance, practical information on what we can do on this very, very special day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so for any of your viewers who are really watching, you might have noticed that I've switched the ring as well.
Oh, yes, we talked about that in another session.
Yeah, so again, I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, so I've switched the red ring. If I was with you in the Northern Hemisphere,
white.
I would switch to a white ring. So when I come to visit you, I will have both rings because I'm
in the middle.
briefly in the north.
Yeah. We're in the middle. Okay, thank you so much for sharing, and I will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Perfect.